welcome to Tangled in Truth, the Red Thread. I'm really excited to have you guys here for a second time. Um, Now, as excited as I am to dive into everyday stories, there's still some more I need to explain so that way it makes a little bit more sense and the message is fully able to resonate with every one of you. Now, the topics that we are going to be covering today, before I cover just a little bit about what's going on in the world, we will be talking about the soul versus the human experience, your higher self and multidimensionality, as well as time as an illusion. Now, one thing that I want everyone to understand is how we're living in 3D is not our natural state. Our natural state is in the spiritual realm. Now, many different religions, many different ethnicities have different ideas about what the spiritual realm might be. Now, in the spiritual realm, before we come in here to our 3D life to experience it is what we've agreed to experience, we have soul families. Now, these soul families typically follow us from lifetime to lifetime, and it's the same group of souls. Now, to know if somebody is in your soul family, typically the most often, or I should, excuse me, the most common feeling is, say that you've never met somebody before, or it's the first time you're meeting them, and they feel super familiar. You don't understand how, you don't understand why, you know you've never seen them before, but something is so familiar. There is a possibility that they might be in your soul family. And that's because even though you may not be experiencing something currently in this physical reality with them right now, doesn't mean you didn't have other experiences with them in past lifetimes. Now, within these soul families, we have different soul contracts with every different soul. And some soul contracts are for love, are for comfort, are for support. Other soul contracts are more for clearing karmic energy. Now, what I mean by that is these souls that you choose to break down generational karma typically is not the happiest relationship for you. You sometimes not you, I should say, there's sometimes a lot of toxicity with it. It doesn't go very well. It's negative. Abusive relationships are a common one. A strained relationship with your parent. You can come up with all different ideas and different examples of what that might be, but their main job is to make you aware of something or help you teach yourself something. I know for me, with some of the people I've had karmic soul contracts with, there was a big lesson within boundaries, within self worth, within learning how to step away. Now, this is kind of where I want everyone to understand that ultimately everything that ever happens is typically neutral. And what I mean by that is when we incarnate here on earth, for the most part, we know exactly what's going to happen and we know our exit point. We know the different types of people we're going to come in contact with. And even if you have an awful relationship with somebody, that is something you had agreed upon because your higher self saw some kind of lesson, something worth going through that situation. Now, karmic cycles can be for anything small or something much bigger. Um, a lot of the karmic cycles, as well as generational trauma that I know I've experienced, and a lot of people who are anchors like me, um, have all kind of felt like cycle breakers. We've been the people who haven't been afraid to talk about the taboo things that were often silenced when we were children, when we were younger. We don't mind rocking the boat because we see the benefit and we see the possibility of what could be in that relationship. And being the one to rock the boat, being the one to be outspoken, being the one to make these realizations is oftentimes very lonely, very isolating. Um, Common term is black sheep. Might feel like the black sheep of your family. Scapegoat, someone that was always blamed for the problems. Now, the thing about generational trauma is no souls that do choose generational trauma are weak by any means. None of the souls are. But the ones that come to heal generational trauma are willing to heal the trauma that no one else has been willing to look at or even admit or accept is currently there. Thus, that karma and that energy and that negativity does spread, does seep into everybody. But those cycle breakers are the ones that are going to say, nope, not me. I'm done. This ends with me. Now, before I go on too much of a rant about that stuff, I could probably go on for hours about that. Um, One thing that I found absolutely fascinating in Dolores Cannon's work is when we're souls and we're deciding who we're going to incarnate as in this physical vessel, my physical vessel being Jessica. There are other people who choose disabled bodies. Now, Dolores often said that the lines for disabled bodies in the spiritual realm are so incredibly long, longer than normal bodies, because in disabled bodies, people are able to heal more trauma quicker because of all the limitations that they have by incarnating in a disabled body. Mainly just because there's so much to learn, so much growth that does happen. Um, a good example is if anyone is into um, podcasts, the telepathy tapes by Kai Dickens was also another, I want to say it was kind of a spark that made me start to realize, well, maybe something else is out there. The telepathy tapes, highly recommended. She does a great job of taking non-speaking autistics, called spellers, have different ways of either pointing at boards, or they'll have little keyboards to type onto. Now, the one thing that all of these non-speaking autistics have in common is that they're all able to access this spiritual realm where they can speak with each other. They have no disabilities. And the most fascinating thing about this is some of these kids with disabilities are able to read their parents' minds. And I know when I read that, it changed how I even thought when I'm with other people. Now, also, like karmic cycles and soul contracts, I could go on for hours about the telepathy tapes. Today will not be a day for that, but if anyone's interested, I'm more than willing to do a deep dive on the telepathy tapes, which I really hope she does a second season. I think it would be beneficial for everybody. Now, with the telepathy tapes, with everything that I've spoken about, one thing to understand about Earth, about this physical 3D reality that we currently exist in, is it's a school. And it's referenced that by many, many, many people. And it's no easy school. It's, I've heard it described like getting your master's in souls. See, Earth, when you incarnate here, you forget everything about who you are, who you're a part of, and you're made to feel separate from Source. Now, what is Source? You might be asking. Source is God, it is the universe, it's whatever you want to call the great creator, you could say. We are all a part of Source, and Source is a part of us. Now, we are the only reality, the only species that actually is born into this world forgetting. So many other species, other dimensions are born with the knowing of their connection to source and their connection to community and everything else. That's what makes Earth a master's class. Because if you were to have all the answers when you took a test, what would be the point in studying? What would be the point of the test at all if you knew all the answers? Now, when it comes to Earth being a school, I want you to understand that we're not alone. We all have guides. A lot of people call them guardian angels, spirit guides, many different names. Now, these spirit guides aren't these omnipotent beings with wings in the sky. They exist on Earth with us, but in a completely different dimension that we're unable to see. Now, our guides are able to speak to us in a few different ways. They don't speak in linear language that we use. They speak often through downloads. Intuition is the best way to describe downloads, a sudden knowing that you didn't have before, a feeling of calm. I know my guides speak to me through synchronicities, specifically through time. Numbers are a big one. Um, and another way or another example is, say that you're going out for a walk and you decide to take a right instead of a left. When you take that right, you hear a conversation that you might have not heard had you taken a left, and it's the exact conversation that you needed to hear for whatever you're dealing with in your life. That is also your guide speaking to you by nudging you very gently in one way or the other to the message that you need to hear. They're going to speak to us in the ways that benefit us both or all. And if they just showed up and manifested physically, I don't think that would be super helpful. Their best way in order to communicate is subtly, um, almost under the radar. Now, along with our guides is also our higher self. Higher self does communicate the exact same ways. Now, what do I mean by higher self? Kind of like I mentioned earlier, us in this physical reality are just this little crystalline fractal. We're just the tip of the iceberg, is what you could call it. Everything beyond what this physical reality is so much more. We are so expansive. We're infinite. We are loving. We are part of something that our human minds have a hard time comprehending. Now, your higher self is mainly there to help you realize who you truly are. And to know when it's confirming who you truly are, the best phrase that I can use is one that Bashar uses, and that is by acting on your greatest excitement. Acting on your greatest excitement by meaning do stuff that gives you butterflies, do stuff that gives you energy, that gives you a wanting to move forward. Now, by acting on your highest excitement, you're actually able to get yourself closest to your highest form because you're being your truest, most authentic self. Now, being your truest, most authentic self does not mean being perfect. It means being aware of your emotions, your triggers, and working on them, and just actively trying to grow and be a better person. Now, a little bit more diving into the higher self as well as multidimensionality. Um, a lot of you are familiar with superhero movies where they talk about multiple dimensions, multiple realities where you may have made one decision and went a completely different way, and in another reality you made a different decision, and you're at two very completely polarizing opposite ends. Now, that does exist. Our higher self is actually able to jump from reality to reality to reality based on what our soul is living authentically. Now, if you're going to be acting on your highest excitement, being your authentic self, holding yourself accountable, your higher self is going to find yourself on the best timeline to give you the most happiness, abundance, um, as well as clarification. Um, kind of a way to know that you're jumping from timeline to timeline, which sounds crazy. I get it. I get it. This is kind of where we're getting into some hokey stuff. Deja vu, mandala effects are often symptoms of timeline jumps. Right now, currently in this physical reality, we are experiencing a timeline split where we are seeing two very, very, very polarizing sides. Why people are so argumentative, why so many people are doubling down on beliefs that just don't make sense, is because of this timeline splitting. Now, this timeline splitting gets into the idea of old Earth versus new Earth. This is a topic heavily covered by Dolores Cannon. Now, old Earth and new Earth are two very different places, and they operate on different frequencies. Now, one thing to understand is everything is frequency. Every single thing is frequency. And in old Earth, it's going to be operating off the frequency of fear, control, as well as survival mode. You are not going to be acting under your most authentic self. In New Earth, you will be radiating the frequency of love, freedom, and unity. That is the ultimate goal of where we're hoping to get. Now, the best way to know if you're ending up on old or new Earth is by asking yourself, based on choices you're making, am I making this choice out of fear and anger, or am I making it out of compassion and awareness? By constantly taking a second to think and step back and trying to evaluate the situation as a whole, ultimately is going to be the best way to raise your vibration, to raise your frequency, so you are able to move to new Earth. Now, one thing I want you to understand is this timeline split that's happening. The rift will become so wide that we will not be able to see both timelines at once anymore. The split will become too far that it will be impossible to jump from timeline to timeline because of the drastic shift in frequencies that will be taking place. Now, the reason we're seeing it is they're still close enough, even though the frequencies are very different right now. We're able to see each other. That's why we're seeing fighting. That's why we're seeing such polarizing comments made by the right and the left. Now, one thing I need you to understand is the chaos that's happening is happening for a reason. There are people, there are entities, there are souls that benefit off of the collective of humanity giving off anger, suffering, depression, fear, control, manipulation, because they feed off those energies and it multiplies it. Now, these beings do operate on a lower frequency, on a lower vibrational level. And the thing with lower vibrational entities is when the collective vibration starts to rise, all these control structures, all these systems that have been placed by these lower dimensional entities start to shake loose. Now, all these systems have basically indoctrinated us to forget who we are, to forget that we're a sovereign being. And that's how they continue to have power, is by keeping us asleep. Now, these entities have infiltrated and hijacked everything from our politics to our education to our healthcare to religion. And I can't even tell you, just every aspect of government has been affected by these lower vibrations. That's not saying that there aren't people with higher vibrations who do care about the benefit of humanity who aren't in there. But because the people who run the show are lower vibrational entities, that is why there has been so much darkness. Now, anyone who is familiar with the dying process, our body goes through what's in active dying. Our body experiences what's called the death rattle. Now, that's what I would say is what we're currently seeing, what we're currently expecting is the death rattle. Now, the death rattle is loud, it's jarring, but it is the sign to an end. All of the systems within the government to keep lies from us, to not give the truth when it comes to the assassination of Charlie Kirk, who downplay the school shootings, who spark the continuous argument between the right and the left because they feed and they thrive off division. Because the issue is when the right and left unites, we're ultimately incredibly powerful. Think about it. 8.1 billion against 13 or 15 families that run the entire economy and everything of the globe. I think they're starting to realize that a class war is on the way. And that's why they're causing so much division. That's why they're causing so much chaos. That's why they're causing so much distraction, because we're getting too close and too many people are waking up. That's why I'm here. I am here to help wake you up. So that way we can be ushered into this new earth, this new age of unity. Whew, all right. Calm myself down for a little bit. I get a little feisty when it comes to the 1%. And we will definitely be talking a lot more about the 1% when it comes to different ways that they control the media, propaganda, and just a lot of what we're not seeing today, or a lot of the inconsistencies that are coming out in the chaos happening today, is because of all of that. Now, let's see. Whoop. Sorry, guys. Still getting used to the camera. Now, I've kind of been telling other people this, and it could be nothing, could be something. I do feel like something is coming on the horizon here very shortly, that will be ushering in a new age of technology, a new age of consciousness, basically just a complete change of our paradigm. Now, before that happens, I do expect there to be more chaos, and I do expect there to be more misinformation, more manipulation. And I just caution you, before believing anything, cross-reference your sources. Think, is this true? Please don't believe headlines. Go into it. So many people are blatantly telling lies and covering the truth that the real truth is not on mainstream. Mainstream legacy medias, MSNBC, CNN, Fox, they're all owned. They're all owned by the elite, by the 1%. And they're meant to stoke us, to get us angry, to dislike each other. And the best thing that I ever did for myself was stopping all cable news and doing my own independent research and looking into independent journalists who also share the same values as me, and want the truth and want the collective to wake up to the reality of what's been happening, probably, in all honesty, since the 1920s or even before. Now, next time, I'm really hoping to get into catastrophic disclosure, all the possible last ditch efforts that they've made to cover and manipulate UAPs, which are also known as UFOs, NHIs, which are non human intelligences, thus the higher dimensional beings, lower dimensional beings that I've already mentioned, as well as ocean based conspiracy theories. What open contact might look like for all of us and the different types of ETs that we may come in contact with at first. Because catastrophic disclosure, when I say that, I don't mean the world's going to implode, things are going to get insane, they're going to get crazy. I think catastrophic closure disclosure basically means it is disclosure not controlled by the government. I do expect the government to do a slow release, a slow drip of information, probably over the next year to make it look like they have some control over this. Because if the ETs show themselves without the government giving us any notice, it's going to make them look really bad. Now, I know this all sounds crazy. I absolutely know this all sounds crazy. But just please listen to me. All the chaos that has ensued within the last 2 weeks has a purpose, and it is a sign that the old paradigm is crumbling. So just stay calm, spend time with your family, spend time with your loved ones. Don't believe everything you hear on media. Look into it first. Look around, ask people, see if it's rational. Because I do expect us to hear more crazy stories in the weeks and years to come. Now, before I rattle off on a bird walk and start making absolutely zero sense, I just want to remind you that you're early, you're not crazy, and I really hope to see you guys next time for episode 3, where we talk more about open disclosure, open contact, in some of the actual hidden secrets that the government is hiding and covering up to keep us asleep. Until next time, have a great week.